Hello, I'm Julian Russell. Welcome to a practice session on generative coaching for participants in a 4-day workshop between the 11th and the 14th of February 2021. We'll be covering the 6-step model, which is at the heart of generative coaching. I hope you enjoy this recording. So it's great to have you here. You know, the 4-day generative coaching course is such a lot of material and such a lot of insight in such a short amount of time. And, you know, they're really packing it in. And I know that Steve likes to run long days coaching. And he, you know, for what seemed like a long sessions for me was short sessions for him. So they were really packing it in, which is why I thought I would offer to run a practice session for you guys. And how many of you have attended generative coaching training before this last weekend? Paolo, are you? How many of you are certified or have done the certification training? Paolo, Francis, and Martin has as well. Is there anyone else who's done the certification training? Great. So that's a 15 or 16-day program, which is really great. And then you go through each of the steps in the model on each of the models of the program. Before we I'll do a demo, then you'll do 30 minutes per person in groups of 3 where possible to practice this material. And I wanted to make it longer than 30 minutes because for me, coaching can take more than 30 minutes. I mean, you can do it in 5 minutes, but particularly when you're starting out with a model, 30 minutes is quite a short amount of time, but actually an hour and a half with 5-minute breaks in between, plus topping and tailing, all of that stuff, we can only do 30 minutes per round. But that's what we'll do in a group of 3, and then we'll come back and share afterwards. So what I thought I would do is I would just recap the model for you and then take some questions on it. So let me just screen share. So the first step, as you know, is the generative state. So you open a coach field. So you think about, you can either do it through grounding in your body into a mindfulness state or a meditation state, or you can think about a time when you were really in body-mind connection. Hopefully you all have methods for doing that. And in fact, over a period of time, this is such a crucial step in the whole process that over a period of time, you want to develop quite a range of different ways of getting into a body-mind connected state. And the purpose of being in a body-mind connected state is that if it's emotional difficulty that stops you from achieving your objectives, then you need to have the emotions engaged. And if you're only coaching to the cognitive mind, you're not going to touch the emotions. So that's why generative coaching needs to be somatic. And that's why we use body-mind states to access the somatic self. You know, so body, emotion, mind, and spirit. We can talk about spirit another time. And secondly, when you're in that body-mind connected state, when you're in the state of flow, the positive psychology research shows that you will be more successful, you will communicate better, you will relate better, everything will go better when you're in those states. So a large part of this is about creating a practice where we keep coming back to the generative state or the coach state. And so then, of course, as you know, the second step, which I think is relatively simple, is setting an intention. And I do like Robert and Steve's model of 5 words or less, because you really get to the essence of it. If you want to set SMART or specific objectives, then there are other tools that you use. This isn't the only goal setting model, but particularly in terms of psychological change, psychological empowerment, having this very, very clear somatic intention in 5 words or less is really helpful. And there are 2 great questions. One question is, what do you want? Which is the obvious question. The more interesting question is, what does life want from you today? So that's a question that speaks more to the unconscious, but you can use a whole range of different questions here. But right from the start, so as a coach, by the way, and I know that many people know this already, but I want to remind you, it's not just the client or the person that you're coaching who goes into coach state. You both go into coach state. Milton Erickson said something like, you have a conscious mind and an unconscious mind. I have a conscious mind and an unconscious mind. Together, something can happen. And so then the third step is to, having got your intention, you say, what psychological resources do I need to make this happen? What psychological support do I need to make this happen? So they alternate between the words generative state and resources. You'll hear them use both of those two sets of phrases. So what inner support and what are the different sorts of resources? It could be someone who's a mentor who believes in you, or somebody who has the skill set, or it could be a higher power, or it could be the memory of being in high performance flow. What is it that you need to have in your awareness, in your consciousness, in your unconscious? What you need to have to be aware of that will help you feel confident about taking the actions you need to take to get to success. So it may be remembering your competencies, or it may be remembering the feeling of being believed in, cared about. Being believed in is such an important thing. In large organizations, if the chief executive talks to someone 3 or 4 levels down the organization and says, I know you can do it, I believe in you, if you have a problem, give me a call. That sort of confidence that comes from someone that believes in you is extremely powerful. So you develop the generative state. And so then, as a part of the coaching process, you imagine taking action. They call this taking action, but it's what in NLP they would call future pacing. You imagine with your intention, with your resources, you imagine taking action. And if your inner obstacles haven't popped up already, they will pop up now. You probably wouldn't use this as a topic for coaching if there wasn't some obstacle there. I mean, it might be that you would get to step 4 and you rehearse it through and it's all perfect and fine. And then the coach probably hasn't earned their money very well, have they? Because if all it is to rehearse someone through it, well, that's great. It's wonderful. Let's say that's success. That's a high level of, that's a great thing. We don't want to diss having no obstacles, do we? But very often a person will bring something to coaching because there's an obstacle. And so as you rehearse it through, the obstacle you may get the feeling of, this is a bit sticky, there's something here. Now, the problem with a linear process of steps 1 to 6 is that life doesn't work along the lines of a linear process. So the step 5 may come up as you set the intention up. It may step up, come as a resistance to the generative state. It may come up anywhere in this process. It's beginner stuff to put it in the order of 6 steps. So you just need to be aware. And of course, for those of you particularly, for those of you who are good at reading nonverbal signals, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you're not good at reading nonverbal signals, that's something for you to develop, because you want to be watching really closely the whole way through. Do they stay in coach state, and when do they lose it? If they lose it, because that's the sign that the inner obstacle has come up. So, but if you're following the formula, you've got the generative state, you've got your intention, you've got your coach state, you imagine yourself doing it. Along the way, something may come up that makes you feel that you can't, there's something getting in the way for you. And then you transform that. And the basic method for transforming that is to find resources that will support you facing that obstacle. So you want more resources than inner obstacles. And Steve also talks about the sort of Aikido process of, can you just slip around it? Can you just pat it on the head and say, oh, I can feel you here, but actually I'm going to deal with you on another occasion? Or do you need to transform it? Or do you need to bring love to it? Or do you need to, you know, what do you need to bring to it to bring healing to that obstacle? What is it? And the key method is, what are the mentors, the people who believe in you, your own competencies, your ability as a wise adult to take care of the kid in yourself. You know, what is it that you need to bring to transform that obstacle, and to see that vulnerability in yourself not as something that's a disadvantage, but to see as the vulnerability as being a form of sensitivity. So there's some sensitivity that you have, which is a part of your mechanism for sensing the world. Your sense, if we were in, I remember a famous trainer once saying, I'm completely invulnerable to feedback from my audiences. Well, guess what? He stopped being a famous trainer. You know, you want to be vulnerable because that's a part of your mechanism for sensing what's happening around you in the world. So in the end, the ideal is that place in yourself that may be vulnerable. You want to make friends with that, so that you're working with it rather than against it. While you're working with it, while you're working against it, you're in trouble. Even if you can just hold the hand of that place in yourself, things are working much better. And that's the reason for welcoming the obstacle, welcoming that place in yourself, and saying to that place in yourself, how can I support you? And then the final step in the 6-step model is, Steve, you know, I love the way that Steve said that. He says, unless people are willing to do a daily practice of coach state, essentially, generative state, he doesn't work with them one-to-one. I think that's quite a powerful position to take. I think we can all take that position. If I'm working on something that is in the region of, you know, that zone between stretch, you know, high performance, and stress, to stop oneself going past that zone of stretch, you know, it's great to have a daily practice that keeps you centered, in touch with yourself, all of those sorts of things. Any questions on the model? How, you know, that's what we did. I thought it was useful to summarize it because you had 4 days on it in a short amount of time. What questions have you got?
I have a question, if I may.
Go on.
I have actually several questions, so let me know if you want one or several. So the first question is, the way I understand coach state and reflect back if it incorporates this, it's a centered connection, it's connection to the other, and it's also connection to the larger field.
Yes.
Would that, okay. And then on the resourcing or the generative state, the way I interpret it is, so you have the coach state, you have the intent, and then the resourcing is the amplified intent, or that which aligns and is appreciative and underpinning and supportive of the intent. Would that be in alignment?
Yes.
Okay, and then the transforming of obstacles, I see it as a letting go of the narrow form that you hold. Would that be in alignment? Or
you have to be a little bit, you know, some people will say it's letting go as cutting off from. The basic, you know, the essential, the best method is to really bring welcome and care and attention and understand the positive intention of what it is that you want to transform. And by receiving it, by welcoming it, it relaxes. I mean, that's the basic thing. So rather than pushing it away, if you push it away, it comes back stronger. If you welcome it, find out what its intention is, find out what it is that it wants. And if you've had any psychological training, it may be, you know, the kid in me that was 5 at school and, you know, the teacher was nasty. And very often it can be a sort of younger self. And, you know, one of the things around emotional intelligence, the first step of emotional intelligence is self-knowledge, know thyself. And I think as a coach, but also as someone who's coaching, we want to be really used to the idea that we should all know our demons very well and make friends with all our different demons. And then when the demon comes along, you know, and it's maybe the sulky boy or the frightened kid or the, you know, let's not use the word demon too strongly. We just say, oh, welcome, old friend. No, I know you. Let's find out how we can, you know, look after you while I'm doing the high performance activity or while I'm doing the thing that I find a little scary. So,
you know, It struck me that you used the distinction psychological resource. I see the generative state as more an ontological resource where you amplify other identities, functional skills, resources, be it emotional, psychological, cultural. So is psychological resource pretty broad? Just so that I...
Yeah, exactly, absolutely. I mean, yeah, ontological resources is the answer. But I want to keep this really simple. I want us to get to practice. So I'm less interested in the cognitive component and more about just, let's get hands-on, let's get in the sandpit and play. Who else has got questions? I mean, those are great questions, Tivos, but in fact, Prakash,
I agree.
He also he wrote a note in chat. So Prakash and then Francis. Tiva, those are great questions, but I want us to get into the somatic activity, which is the practice.
Yeah. So the question I have is twofold. One is that you mentioned goal setting, use this process for goal setting. And I was just wondering, as you are doing this process, to what extent do you use the traditional NLP techniques, when you're looking at different steps, like reframing and stuff like that, or do you just ignore it altogether?
Okay, how many people here are trained in NLP? Got an NLP practitioner? Quite a few. So someone asked Steve a similar question on the program. He said, can you use 6-step reframing? And he more or less said no, but I think he was from my point of view, I'm giving you my personal point of view, I think he was doing that because it was a beginner class.
Yeah.
So the 6 steps are so generic that my view is that you can use any tools you have in support of any one of the steps.
Yeah.
So that would be my view. You use everything that you've got in your arsenal, use in the support of the step. So that's the first point. The second thing around goal setting is that just because this is a generative coaching model doesn't mean that it teaches you everything that is to be known in the entire universe.
Yeah.
So you've got everything from strategic planning, 10-year visioning, big vision stuff, 10-year, 3-year, 1 year. So as you get to precision, of course, then you would do what in NLP they call well-formed outcomes. And in business you would call smart steps. There is a time and a place to say what's the measurable evidence for this particular activity. But here, to use the language that Tivo was using, we're doing an ontological process. And so the first step is to get ourselves physically, emotionally, spiritually, if you like, aligned to conduct the activity. And then a later step might be to say, and what's the well-formed outcome? What's the smart objective that will be the business measure of success? So all of that stuff can be used there. But in terms of the generative coaching process, which is this body, emotion, mind, spirit process, it's good to just have that really clear feeling of this is what I want, this is the intention, or this is what's calling me.
Yes.
Thank you, Prakash.
Thank you.
Francis was next, I think.
Yeah, thank you, Julian. So I understand, the point you made, it's not a linear model, step 1 to 6, it could come in all kinds of ways.
Yes.
What I'm wondering is, Stephen said, as soon as you set out your intention of what do I want to bring into the world, obstacles come your way right away. So the bit that I'm not 100% clear about is the business of developing a resource state immediately after setting intention and goals, because usually it's the obstacles that you'd like the resource, you'd want the resources for the obstacles, not resources to develop a coach state, if you understand my point.
No. So the problem with calling this generative coaching is that we'll have people on the program who are sort of business coaches who don't deal much with and by the way, I don't mean to diss business coaches, because I'm a business coach myself, but you may have people here who are very good at using coaching to help you achieve objectives, and working with the psychological is a bit new. And then you'll have people here who are psychiatrists like Francis, who, I think you're a psychiatrist, Francis, aren't you? Who are really, you know, experienced at dealing with the deep emotional stuff. So the model is trying to cover a whole range of, I was going to say sins, but a whole range of possibilities. And the key point is that it's not a numerically sequenced model. That's the way it gets taught to beginners. That's you, when you first learn to play a piece on the piano, you learn the piece, then later you learn how to jazz improvisation. So the way to think of it is those 6 steps are bullet points rather than numbered, and that you can deal with, as long as, you know, in a session, you deal with them all to the extent to which they need to be dealt with, and that's been a generative session. And you might find in some sessions you deal with one area more, spend more time on one area than on another. You know, if the obstacle to be transformed is, you know, massive childhood wound, you might spend quite a lot of time on that part of the model. So, but at the sort of, you know, as we learn the steps, we then spend 5 minutes on each of the steps as a part of learning the process. Does that make sense?
That's really helpful, really helpful. Thank you, Julian. Yeah.
And in fact, in the creative mind model, which he says he has an extra step, he has 7 steps. Steve has 7 steps in the creative mind model. And the extra step is weaving the resources and what needs to be transformed. So you get the resources, you bring it to what needs to be transformed, then you check back again, you know, or do I need some more resources, or do I need a bit of this, or maybe I need some mother love, let me call in my mother, you know, or maybe I need big mentor love, let me call in my big mentor. So there's a sort of weaving process. So I think, you know, we need to learn these as 6 steps, but once we've learned it as 6 steps, we can do it as 6 elements of a well-formed process. That's how I understand it. I'd like to go to practice pretty quickly, but any other questions that are burning questions that, that you have? Maxine.
Hello. In regard to the resources, in the course of the 4-day weekend, I found myself always, and the people I was matched with, looking for resources that were necessary to fulfill that outcome, that goal, rather than just transform. And from what I gathered in the last conversation, the assumption was that the resources are for the transformation. It's also, what do you need to enrich and bring forth that outcome?
Absolutely.
And that's what I focused on as primary for me, and it gave me transformation. Just sharing. I'm sorry.
No, Maxine, it's great. It's great. I think it's, you know, the answer is yes. The answer is both.
Yes, the first, both and more.
Yeah, more exactly. So the first is you access the resources to support you achieving the intention. It's all about getting there and acting. You know, acting, the resources. And when you work with the whatever it is that needs to be transformed, the first step is always welcome it. You know, who are you? What are you about? I want to understand you. I want to understand what your concern is. And then there's perhaps a sort of triage step, which is, oh, I really get what's going on and I really need to give you some attention. But actually right now I've got business to do and I'm going to do it. So I'm going to hold your hand while I go off and do it. So a sort of aikido sidestepping of the thing that you then come back and do psychological or spiritual work. Or as you work with it, you realize this is going to get in the way unless I deal with it. So now what resources do I need to do to access to help me transform this, or be friends with this, or mentor this? It can be like, so the school, I do quite like the parent, the wounded child sort of type of model, and that you find the best parent in you and you go and say, I really get you fell over in the schoolyard and you bumped your knee and, it really hurts, doesn't it? And you do some pacing of that. And then after a while, the kid says, I want to go and play now. So, what is it you need to bring to that place in yourself so that place in you can support you in whatever activity. And we're talking, we're talking about, if we explore this one topic, we could take 3 years on it or more.
In my case, I was working on receiving easily and effortlessly instead of pushing it away, which is typical of me.
Yeah, great.
And what I did was go back to 3 different reference experiences where I was receiving completely and eagerly.
Yeah.
And it was dazzling. And those, especially the first one with the Dalai Lama, completely transformed the difficulties before we even got to looking at them somatically.
Great. Beautiful.
And it is very useful to go back and remember times when you were already doing what you're attempting to do more of.
Very, very useful to go back and remember times when you were already doing what it is that you were seeking to do next. Any other questions before we get into doing to practicing? Great. Oh, Barbara.
I need to either be an observer or not be in a breakout room because my electricity is no good.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Okay. So it's going to be an exercise of 1 hour and 40 minutes from soon. And so therefore, Barbara will be an observer, Tamara will be an observer, Tivos will be an observer, and Carol will be an observer. That's my understanding.
Thank you.
Great. Let me just screen share with you my exercise. Oh, can you read that okay? Exercise instructions. I could have made it slightly larger. Let me just see if I can do that.
Oh, good. This is so cool.
I know, isn't it? The technology is great, isn't it? So basically you've got 30 minutes to do the coaching in a group of 3. And then you've got a 5-minute break, which you can either take as a break or, if you're running late, you can use it. But you've got a 5-minute break between the 2 rounds. And at the end of the 3rd round, before we come back, there'll be a little 5-minute break. And so what's the role of the 3rd person? There are sort of 2 reasons for me. One is that you learn a lot from watching someone else do it, so that's a really key part of the process. Another part is that you can support both the coach and the client or the explorer, whatever you want to call them, in the exercise. And you want to help the coach stay on track, and you want to watch for, is the coach and the client and the explorer connected? Are they in rapport with each other? Are they in resonance with each other? And sort of support either one of them if they're not. Sometimes in the worst case scenario, 2 people just, for whatever reason it is, they just don't get on, even if you're really experienced. So just occasionally, you might swap the coach. But basically, you're there to support the coach and to support the client going through the process well. It's important to remember, Stephen Robert didn't say things like, don't put words in your client's mouth, try and use their words rather than your words. And if, depending on your level of experience, you may be very good at giving people advice, but not very good at reflective listening and coaching. So there's going to be a lot of different levels of competence, which is completely natural. That's, it's called learning, isn't it? So the role of the coach is to support the other 2 in the process. One of the reasons why I like to do the groups of 3 is that if I'm in a training room, I can go around and listen into the group. And then if it's not quite working, I can intervene, but it's much harder to do that in breakout rooms. So I think that's what's so important about the group of 3. At the end, if there's time, it would be great for the observer to give 4 pieces of feedback to the coach. 3 things that worked well and 1 thing they could do better next time, but much better to focus on what it is that they could do well. In the pairs, it'll be 45 minutes per round. Any questions before we go into the exercise?
Yes.
Great, Martin.
I have one question. If there's anybody German speaking interested to work with me, I would like to work in German, but if not, it's okay in English.
Carolyn has waved her hand. Is there a third person who's willing to work in German? Akim, are you happy to work in German? Great, fantastic. So I'll make sure, it'll take me a minute to organize this. So we've got,
happens because it's body-centered as well. And I was really impressed with how body-centered this type of therapy is. And,
Right.
and it's also very permissive. It doesn't tell the client, it gives the client options, it's permissive. I just like a lot of things about what you're doing.
great. No, that's a great thing about the generative work. It's state-based. So it's all about working with the state. If you get the state right, all the sort of actions and behaviors will come. If you don't know how to do it, if you've got a good state, you'll go and learn how to do it, or you'll get support doing it, or whatever. So yeah.
One of the things you call me is called loving presence, and it is sort of developing that kind of state in the therapist. And so I don't know, it's just fascinating to see how all these pieces fit together. So thank you.
I mean, hopefully all the good stuff has many of the same components because it's the stuff that works. One of the ways that I know that there is wisdom is when you see the same approach in multiple different methodologies. So yeah, it's great. What did you get from the exercise? What did you get from it?
Me?
No, everybody. I'm just talking to everybody.
No, it's I had a great experience. I felt connection with my son. I felt I was seeing myself as the mother again, and like I'm having the child who is 31 years old. I've seen him as a little boy, and then in the end, I felt support from all mothers in the planet Earth.
Fantastic.
I saw the crowd of women, and they all told me, "We are with you. You're not alone."
That's such a beautiful example of a resource. That's such a beautiful example.
Yes, it was such a resources were wonderful.
Yeah.
And I felt that my heart in the wrong place.
Beautiful.
I felt that my heart not in the right side of my body, in the wrong side of my body, and then it moved back. It was a wonderful experience. I wish we can do it again.
Well,
Russell, we do it again?
Do what again?
The same session, the same meeting.
A practice group.
Small
I don't know.
meeting.
I'm thinking about it. I don't know if they were running a generative coaching practice group this year, training this year, then I might run some practice sessions. I'll have a think about it anyway. But yeah, it's great. Thank you. I'm so glad that you had such a great experience. What else did you learn? What else did you experience? Everyone.
As a coach, I was surprised that I felt a different person from other part of the world. I'm in the United States, he's in Sweden, and I felt what he felt. I felt the tension in the knees. I felt butterflies in the end of the session. I was very interested to find out that I actually have the same feelings in my body that he does.
Well, it's so beautiful that the human nervous system is so amazing because even through the internet, even through Zoom, our mirror neurons work and we can feel what's happening in each other. It's the most amazing thing about doing these type of Zoom sessions. So, what else did you get, either as a coach or as a participant?
I think, sorry, Julian, it's Prakash here.
Hi, Prakash.
Yeah, just say that we covered so much in the 4 days, right?
Yes.
That I had very difficulty remembering, all the nuances of what Robert and Stephen were doing. So I just had to, just go through the process and hope for the best,
Sounds
So
perfect.
Yeah, I may have missed a few things, but here and there.
It sounds perfect. I mean, it's a 4-day workshop. Even the 16-day certification isn't long enough. If you want to be a master of this stuff, you need to do a lot of different programs over, a large number of years. This is something, you know, that takes a long time, you know. So from a 4-day workshop, that was a very, very fast introduction, almost too fast. I think that I'll tell you my view, which is that that number of hours sitting in front of Zoom is not very somatic. I would actually take the 4 days and do it over 8 weeks with half a day a week. You know, I would do it differently. I think that it's not ideal for learning, but the thing is that you get Robert and Steve at the same time. You don't have to fly to America or whatever, so it's great. But there is a limitation, and so don't be hard on yourself if you didn't take it all in. Also, of course, you can watch the videos again, but I think I've been through the whole 16-day certification program on the generative coaching twice previously, and I thought it was fast. So, you know, just be kind with yourself. What else? Other questions?
I was going to say, Julian, the session I did with Ines, where we heard about the mothers of all the mothers of the world, I thought it was a good example of how I just briefly said, okay, so what's your intention? But she got so deeply into it. So, and then I say, well, okay, so let's move to the coach state. And she was like on a 9 already. So I think, okay. And then we're straight into obstacles. So it's a very good example of, okay, we went 2, 1, 5.
Yeah, brilliant.
But it all worked out very beautifully. And it was a very good example of how it's not a one. Normally you would try and do coach, but it's normal also to first say, what's your overall intention for this session?
Absolutely.
To do. And if they get that deeply into it, you know, then okay.
There's a careful balance between following a process and doing it correctly and following the client. And you know, if the client wants to spend the whole session in sort of unresourceful state, you know, disempowered state, you may have gone too far in the direction of the client. But if you're dominating the process with your, you know, your script, and you're not following the client, that's not correct either. So there's a balance in between. Yeah. So yeah.
But it's useful to have those points, like you say, or they said in the session. You know, I'm thinking, okay, Inessa seems to have reached she seems really happy with where it is, but we haven't done the take action steps. So let's just ask. So it's like the points remind you, what have we not quite, what needs to come up now? So that's useful.
I mean, I don't know what sort of coaching you do, but when I do coaching, it's multi-session. So I'm not trying to do it all in a single session. And if there's something that I miss in one session, I may make notes about it and see if I can't steer it in that direction for the second session. It's not, there's a sort of ideal of doing a complete piece of work in a single session, but in real life, that doesn't always happen, you know, so. You know, I think these are guidelines and things to practice and, you know, work with rather than strict rules. Yeah. Oh,
absolutely. Yeah. I do think it's helpful to have at least one little question at the end. Okay, so what's the next step? If you haven't got round to action steps, we've got to ground it in some little way. So what are you going to do now in the world? But yeah.
What else? Who else has got comments, learnings? And again, it's great to have cameras on if you can have cameras on, because it creates the culture of connection if we have our cameras on. Other comments, questions, experiences?
Maxine?
Yeah, Maxine.
I had a tremendous time with Paul, who was one of the easiest people to coach that I've ever had, while first insisting that he didn't know what to do. Liar. He was brilliant, but his goal was one that's universal for all of us, to experience love. And instead of waiting until we got to, as I often do, till we got to the conflict, to the blockage, to the whatever you care to call the state that would come up to prevent him from having it, he went so thoroughly into 3 distinct different memories of distinct different loves. The embrace of a girlfriend, universal love, and being rocked in healing love by a parent, by a mother. What a dazzling consciousness. And I got to play second position and smack my lips throughout because I tasted it all. And then I had the great good fortune of having Barbara as our wing person, who is bloody amazing. She had so much insight to give both of us throughout.
Thank you.
And that kind of insight from a third party, amazing and enriching.
Great.
And for that, I'm very grateful that we did do groups of 3 instead of just 2.
Great.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Julian.
Great, sure. I just want to go back on your point about love. I mean, I do think, just to oversimplify things, that the love is the healing power. You can bring it to bring love and kindness and tenderness to any part of yourself. And it can be, the love of a friend or a mentor or a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
It can also be, some sort of higher power type of love. I just think there are people in the therapy world who, who want to be sort of great experts and professionals, but I think the basics are really simple, and we just need to get really great at the basics. So, who else has got a view from either an experience? Akim.
I'm super happy for Caroline's suggestion for a German group. I completely underestimated how easier it would be to communicate with the younger part of me in my mother tongue. I was very surprised by that.
Yeah. Akim, that's so beautiful. I think it's so, there are so many, unfortunately, I'm one of the lucky ones because international language is English, and so I don't have to try very hard, and it's, but I think there's something so important about any work that goes back to, the younger ages is best done in one's native tongue, and some people are so experienced, there are some people who are so experienced in English that they can do it in English, but I just think it's worth checking. Like when I do life calling work with people, I always ask them to find a version of their life calling in their native tongue as well as in English, because the language of the first few years of life is going to be so deep in your neurology and your internal structure. It's so significant. However much training you've done as an adult, even if you dream in English.
I do. That's why exactly. I'm in English. I should be fine, but it really made a difference.
I mean, you work in English, Akim. So I just think we should all recognise that. How important that is. And so sometimes it's great to do it. So there are two methods. One is it's great to have groups in the native tongue, and then the other thing that you can do is you can actually get someone to talk it out in their language, even if you don't understand it. And I was doing that in a group the other day. Fortunately, there was someone who spoke their language who could do a little bit of help, gave me a bit of help. But basically, we did the work. I was doing a demo in their native tongue because that was the powerful language for the person. So great, thank you for that. Who else? What other comments? Any questions? We've got Fiona. Nice to hear you. Nice to see you and hear you.
I want to share an experience of freedom I got. So my coach created a sense of, I was able to connect with a sense of freedom to find something that I didn't think I'd be able to find. And I just wanted to celebrate that, really. It's reaffirmed. I mean, I'm new to this generative work. I've only done the 4-day work we did a week ago.
Yes.
But I was drawn to it by the beauty of the poetry, the creativeness, the connection with the mind, the heart, and the body, and it's just it's flourishing in my heart, and it's lovely.
Beautiful.
So thank you, my coach.
Who is your coach?
I know who you are. Belonda.
Belonda, fantastic. Great.
Yeah, it was great. I want to say something regarding the first question, or the intention question. I find what we did is we said, I don't know, because I haven't been here in the beginning, but what is it that you want to create most today? And I found this as, just an example of the really big questions of, I want to find love, things like that, to break it really down on a very practical level. I found this approach also really nice and helpful, and wanted to say that.
Beautiful. Cool. Yeah. What is it you most want to create today, or what is it you most?
Yeah. English is not my mother
tongue. I like the question. What does life want from me today? I like that as well. So
I had. Yeah, and somebody asked me the question, not in this coaching, what does the world want from you? And I was like, boom.
But the only problem with that question is if the person is a codependent person, they're always looking to the outside for their sense of self, then that wouldn't work. So, no question is perfect for every human being. We need to adapt to the person that we're working with. What else? What else?
I would add to what just Jonas said in terms of how every time that I come to these calls, it just feels like I'm already home. And even though I don't know much of everybody here, but I always feel very comfortable and safe to be here. By going through the exercise, and I could experience many different perspectives. And I think just getting there and working with Adrian, I felt very safe and felt like I could, although I didn't participate in this last seminar from the Creative Mind, many things are similar. So I was able to experience every step of it. And I learned a lot as well, just by seeing how experienced Francis was able to go through any type of things and how can improve better at that. So being able to just observe things and connect from this side was very helpful in terms of understanding how I can learn better, how I can connect better, and how I can go better from there.
Nice work, Adrian. Thank you, John, and nice work, Adrian. The heart of the practitioner, of the coach, is, the coach state of the coach is crucial to the process. And then you get a field between the coach and the client or the explorer. It's beautiful. What else? Maybe we're done. Maybe we're almost done. Julian? What I like to do is, in closing, is to have everybody say 2 or 3 words about how they're feeling. I like that. Then you get to hear all the voices of, because it's, so you hear from the people who are quiet, not just from the people who speak up. So I'd love to do that. So if 2 people talk over each other, just wait for a pause and repeat it again. So there's no, if you have to repeat yourself more than once, that's fine. Just you make sure that you're heard. So how are you feeling right now? Everybody unmute themselves. How are you feeling right now?
Light.
Richly endowed.
Energized. Yeah.
Yeah. More optimistic and energized too. Me too.
Deeply processing.
Confident.
Empowered.
I feel lucky and grateful.
I feel full of courage.
2 people who just spoke, go again.
I feel grateful and I feel in peace.
Great.
I feel in peace and gratefulness.
Tender.
I feel the will to practice more.
Confident. More confident.
Yeah, I feel very positive. Very positive.
Grateful.
Empowered.
Filled and satisfied.
Thank you. I feel lucky to meet all of you here and to have had such a a big experience with my German group. And well, I didn't expect that. Thank you.
I feel happy and connected.
I feel blessed and confirmed.
On the right path.
On the right path.
I feel cared about and strong.
I feel after 8 years more and more curious.
I feel calm, up for things and appreciative. Thank you.
I feel hungry.
Has anyone not spoken yet? I feel hungry too. So beautiful to be with you all. This has been lovely, and hope to see you soon. And isn't it nice, just the feeling of the vibe that we can create in a session like this?
It's really great.
Yes. I feel like I am 20 years old right now. I feel myself go back to the like 30 years before, back to the past, more energized, more feeling. Oh, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Julian.
Thank you, Julian.
Thank you, Julian.
I'm very grateful to
Julian
and to everybody that participated in this field mind, this group mind. We did it together.
Yes.
Bravo. Bravo. Thank you very much.
See you soon. See you all soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.